This summer in Scotland has been dry, one of the driest on record in fact, and as someone who is obsessed with old and abandoned places, it gives us the opportunity to explore some of the most fascinating and rarest ruins in Scotland, which are those normally found under the water. Scotland has the highest mountains and largest inland lochs in the UK, and combined with lots of rainfall and melting snow, it makes especially the Highlands of Scotland a hotbed for the production of hydroelectricity. Hydroelectric generation in Scotland started in the 1930s, and 54 power stations and 74 dams were built in Scotland by 1965. High up in the mountains, teams of workers endured punishing conditions as they tunnelled, blasted and built hundreds of miles of pipework, dams and the infrastructure to support it. It was hard, dangerous work, and as a result, the landscape of the Highlands were changed forever. Dozens of valleys were dammed and filled, turning what was small lochs or gentle streams into huge water reservoirs for the generation of electricity. It was not only geographical change either. The sudden availability of electricity in such rural places such as the Highlands and Islands of Scotland fundamentally changed the culture and accelerated modernisation in what were some of the UK's most out-of-reach places, where modern developments such as electricity had scarcely touched before. Few, if any, of the areas that were dammed up were heavily populated, but these were still areas where hundreds, if not thousands, of years of history and human presence had still been felt. It can be hard often to see what these dams and rising water levels had covered up, but one place where the effects of this is still easy to see is Claunie, located along the A87 as you drive towards the Isle of Skye. Even on modern satellite maps from above, the remains of the old road is still visible, snaking down below the new one and occasionally plunging into or emerging out of the water. This year, however, bridges and old sections of tarmac, often hidden even in the height of the summer, have started to reveal themselves.
So despite the weather being pretty wet and windy at the moment, it has been very, very dry. One of the driest Septembers. And you can see, of course, a lot of this is typically under the water. You can see the sort of tide marks and, of course, the road just being up there. And this is something that ordinarily is under the water. An underwater river and also an underwater bridge, the old bridge. This being the original road bridge that you'd have once crossed the river. And you can actually see just there is the old sides to the bridge that have fallen in, but the lovely arch still remains there. Well, here's the last of it. Again, there's your road. See the trucks coming along. Back there's where they came from. That's where the largest bridge is, the original. One that we looked at. Then as you can see down here, there is the road and there is the second of the bridge, a bit smaller, and I would say probably more likely to be submerged, although probably 6 1/2 dozen. A little bit of tarmac just along here that signifies the old road, and then this, the second of the bridges. This one a lot squatter, a little bit lower down as well too, probably the first thing to get covered up, and probably the thing that's going to last the longest. This is a pretty sturdy bridge, to be honest, pretty heavily piled up still.
Further east, towards the end of the loch and Claunie Dam itself, is an even more amazing find. Like many rural areas, these routes were pockmarked with lodges, inns and estate houses. Claunie had 3, what is now Claunie Inn to the west, the private Claunie Lodge on the opposite shore of the loch, and a third, which was the Corrielair Lodge, a shooting estate that was closest to what is now the dam. As the waters in the valley rose, the Corrielair Lodge was too low down to be saved. It was demolished and then eventually flooded. However, the remains of the laundry house, located to the rear of the site, was never fully dismantled. With the low water levels in the loch this year, 2 chimney stacks from the building have now revealed themselves once more, appearing out of the water like 2 strange pillars. The water in many Scottish lochs is often very dark owing to the high peat level that is found in the soil. But what was fascinating was that only after filming this with my drone is that on reviewing the footage I spotted what looked to be a bridge located behind the old laundry house and sitting ominously just a few inches below the waterline. Had I waded out only a few more meters, I might have actually been one of the very first people to ever actually walk the bridge that was flooded all those years ago. However, while Claunie is always a fascinating place to visit and see the remains of the old road and the bridges, most of the buildings and what remains there have disappeared or were demolished before the water levels actually got to them. Probably the most impressive of my finds this season, however, has been at the Glendevon Reservoir. Originally completed in 1955, it lies at the head of the Glendevon River in the hills above Stirling. It's one of 2 reservoirs in series that help provide fresh water to the surrounding towns and was also fitted with a hydroelectric plant during a reconstruction in 1994. This year, the water level in the loch has dropped so low that I wanted to take a walk up to see if I could find anything, and I was not disappointed. Beautiful layers of colour have started to spread back down the valley as the water has receded, and barely a puddle of brown muddy water is all that's left at the base of the dam. An old quarry, probably used to provide concrete and building materials for the construction, has also emerged once more. However, the most amazing sight is in the middle of the loch. Sitting near the very bottom of what is normally filled with almost 5 million litres of fresh water is the original farm building, drowned during the construction of the dam in the 1950s and now emerging once more, possibly the only time it's emerged since its reconstruction in 1994. Preserved in time, stained white in mud, there was nothing that was going to stop me from going down and exploring this time capsule that has been stuck at the bottom of a loch since the 1950s. So here we are approaching the house. As you can see, a fair few people have been here before. You can even see how nature is returning. Things are starting to grow back, which shows you how long this has been dry for. And you can see the sort of layers as it goes up the side of this loch. Here's the actual house itself. It seems that you've got like a later extension on the side here, and then the original building here. There's the old drain pipes, still in place, caked with rust. Old bricks scattered about too. Sort of metal plate on there, and wow, there's the old chimney. See how it's collapsed in on itself? This would actually make a great photo with the dam in the background.
See the 2 layers to the brickwork there as well too. And there's the kind of current farm way up there in the distance. Pretty muddy still, but not too bad. Then as we go in, here's the original house. Amazingly, the taggers have found this place and have managed to put graffiti on the wall. Impressive feat. Got a fireplace at that end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 windows, and then the front door. And then another fireplace at this end with the sort of limestone. I wonder if I can stick the camera through, get a clear view up through that chimney. I wonder when the last time anyone looked up through that chimney was. And then in the past, the view out this window would have been lovely. You would have looked all the way down the glen. But now, a bit of a wasteland, as you can see. Quite interesting. Again, the 2 layers to the wall, but look at this. Here's the lintel. Now this house isn't that old, but I think that this has been under the water that entire time. Bits of slate wedged in here as well. This, which looks like a piece of wood, maybe with a nail in it. Maybe for attaching the windows or something onto. Probably sash and case windows, I'm guessing. Again, this view would have looked down into a little river. And now all you can see down there is the, well, remains of the slates that have all fallen off, and some fish. There's trout down there too. Gosh, it's quite amazing how it's all covered in the silt, and then when you break past that, there's the, you know, the actual colour. It's like the dam has sort of just removed the colour, or the water here, it's just removed the colour from everything. And now all that colour's starting to return. You might be able to spot in the distance there the actual old fence line that runs all the way across here. And there's actually a gate over there too. Not that old a gate, really, quite a modern one. In better condition than some of the gates I've seen around here. And yeah, again, would have been all under the water until relatively recently. Look at this lovely bit of rounded stone here. You know, think of all these stones that had been gathered, tiles that would have been moved up here, the brickwork, the iron wrought guttering, that beautiful chimney, which of course the chimney's fallen down, but there's the original chimney piece as well. Think of all of that. Now, all that work and all that effort and the money, you know, hard fought, and then within decades swallowed up by the hydro schemes. This would make a nice photo. '99. You know, I know a lot of people decry graffiti, but this might be a good indication as to the last time this thing was uncovered. If that's correct, this 99 that I spotted, 1995. 1995 was one of the times that this thing was uncovered. So you know what, thank you whoever scored that in. I actually think that's a very interesting record. Somebody scored that in, what, 26 years ago? Now, I don't know where the path would have been, but it's very possible that this is a bit of the old path. You got this edging along here. I think this one's more recent, this bit of graffiti. But yeah, this could have been the original path, and look, there you go. Another old bit of pipe work. Wonder where that leads. There's probably a septic tank somewhere around here, or at least a sewage tank. Yeah, amazing. Look at that. Standing underneath a dam. The future of power of the 1950s, along with the modern future of power, especially in Scotland, which is wind power. Interestingly, I was up there on the dam having some lunch before I came down here, and I was overhearing some locals that had come up to visit, and they said, my friend's grandfather built this house. I think that's what she said. Friend's grandfather built this house here, and she was telling the story of how he chose it. And then, of course, he had to move out because it was being flooded for the hydro scheme, and I'm assuming they were compensated. But she says, interestingly, I think his grandson or his son built that farm, that one way in the distance up there. And she said they can't live there anymore, or they had to move out as a result of the wind farm, because so they run the business from there now, but they don't live there. They only visit during the day, which is a wonderfully poetic way of, I think, summarising a lot of these big, large-scale industrial changes to the landscape. I will say those things are far less of a change than this, but very, very interesting comparison. Well, I am incredibly glad I came to visit this tumble-down little house located at the bottom of a dam. And who knows, it might be years before it appears again. However, unfortunately, with the way things are going in our world, I have a feeling this thing is going to be increasingly visible as droughts and dryness continues. Well, thank you very much for watching yet another niche video. But is it even a Calum video if it isn't niche? That's the question for the philosophers. Anyway, I had a lot of fun making this video. And really, the thing that has been most fun for me is the fact that I basically recorded, edited, researched it, shot it, all from working out of this van. If you've watched my video on my world's smallest camper van, the Suzuki Super Caddy, in that video I mentioned that I had a Nissan NV200 and I was doing it up as a camper van, and it's pretty much done. Fully insulated, carpeted. We've built this beautiful cabinet. It's got space for all my camera gear and electrics and various things. I'm going to be fitting a diesel heater into it. I can run all my electrics, charge my cameras and drones and various things, and it allows me to travel these distances to see stuff. I mean, Claunie's relatively near to me, but you know, Glendevon's a 5.5, 6 hour drive, and I happen to be in the area, but if I didn't have the van and all the stuff with me, I wouldn't have been able to get that really incredible footage. I'm just so privileged to have been able to get up there, and I just feel so lucky to have managed to have captured it at that amazing moment. Now, I didn't mention it in the video, but there's actually a really cool archaeological report that I didn't find until after I'd shot the footage that was done in 2003, and it focused less on the farm buildings and stuff that I was looking at and focused on the much older stuff. There was actually medieval structures, shielings and fanks, and also what they think is a moat, like a small defensive structure, I believe, that is all in that valley and has all been covered up as well. And I really hope I don't come across as anti-hydro scheme or anti-wind farm in that video. I think I maybe did a little bit when I was looking at the edit. That's not the case. It's the complete opposite, in fact. They are the future of power generation and renewables around the world. I just find it fascinating thinking about how the landscape had gone so unchanged, and the human presence on that landscape had been so felt for thousands, hundreds of years, and then completely disappeared.
under the water by the development of these man-made lochs and reservoirs. I just find it really, really fascinating. But I think the story up here is a little bit different to other places. And obviously this is something that has happened around the world and very close to home, Wales. This happened in the 1960s. A valley was flooded to form a water reservoir for the city of Liverpool. And very controversially, the city of Liverpool actually essentially bypassed any Welsh authorities to flood this valley. There was 65 people living in this valley. It was a whole village. One of the very last fully Welsh-speaking villages located in this valley that was flooded. They were evicted from their homes. The village was flooded, and this had happened as well again in the 1880s. It reminds me a lot actually of the Highland clearances that happened around Scotland as well too. That was a lot more controversial, and I don't believe there was really anything on that sort of level that happened up here, although please do correct me if I'm wrong. So, you know, it's a fascinating subject. It's still, though, a very raw subject for a lot of people as well too, both in this country and around the world as well, and I do recognise that too. Now, I think that's about it, really. One thing I'll say, I started a Patreon. I know everyone's about to click. No, he's advertising. Look, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been making videos, 9 years. In fact, I believe it was September or November 2012 that I uploaded my first video to YouTube. So about 9 years now. And, you know, I just make these for fun. And any extra views or any income that comes from it is really just like a happy extra. I will never stop making videos. But if you are, you know, like what I do, would maybe like to see more of what I could do, well, feel free. You can chuck a couple of bucks my way. No pressure. It's just if you feel like supporting me in any way. I do both art and artwork and photography, video work. I'm also recording a podcast, which I might put up there on Patreon as well too. So feel free to have a look there as well. That's something else, you know, I'm a photographer. That's what I do. I never talked about it on YouTube really, but I'm glad I was able to sort of work in my photography work into this video as well too. And it's something I'd like to do in the future. But anyway, plugs over. I'm, like I say, very proud of my van. I'm going to now set up this bed, go to sleep. And then get back on the road and probably do some more editing and shooting. Expect to see more videos in which I record outros from this van because it's a good place to do it. And yeah, I'm going to be doing a lot more editing and stuff in here. So yeah, anyway, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.